Tuesday and the Red Dome. One day in the month of January, King Bahram dressed in red and visited the Red Dome on a Tuesday, the day associated with the planet Mars. He went to see the Slavic lady with a red face, who welcomed him warmly. She was fiery in color, but gentle in demeanor, like water. The lady of the Red Dome greeted King Bahram kindly, resembling the moon worshipping the sun. The king, captivated by her fragrance and juiciness like a red apple, asked her to share an inspiring legend. That beloved complied with Bahram's request and began storytelling, starting her speech as follows: "Blind is the one who cannot see the splendor of King Bahram." Then, she opened her ruby-like lips and narrated the story of a princess who was living in a castle, saying, "In the realm of Russia, there was a beautiful city resembling a bride. A king had built a palace there. This king had a daughter, tall in stature with beautiful eyes, and her face was as beautiful as the moon. Besides all the beauty she possessed, she was also an artist and had mastered all the sciences. Gradually, her fame spread throughout the world. In every gathering, it was said that the king had a daughter who seemed to have come from paradise, and suitors from all sides sought her hand in marriage, some using force and others offering expensive gifts. However, the daughter did not consent to marry any of them. As more and more suitors came with marriage proposals, the daughter rejected them all, becoming frustrated and not knowing how to escape from all these proposals, gifts, and threats. So the girl thought of going to a remote mountain where no one could reach her. She ordered a high fence to be built there. After apologizing to her father, she provided the means of travel. Although the kind father did not have the strength to be away from his daughter, he agreed to this distance for her comfort, and said to himself, "It is better for the honey to be out of reach than for the bees to constantly attack it for drinking. A treasure in the fence is safe from thieves." So the girl, like a treasure, stayed in that fortress. She was very clever and knowledgeable in all sciences from astronomy and medicine to spiritual secrets and culture. For the security of the fortress, she had placed several magical guards made of iron, stone, and spells, so that if anyone tried to trespass the fortress, they would be split in two. It was enough for someone to take a wrong step and get caught in the trap to lose their head. The princess was also a master in painting, creating thousands of pictures with her brush. She wrote in beautiful handwriting on the top of the tower, "Everyone in the world wants to marry me. It is better that he does not speak from afar and steps in this castle. Anyone thinking of catching me must have thousands of lives. Marrying me has 3 conditions: good behavior, the ability to recognize spells and traps with the power of thought, and giving the correct answer to my riddles in the courtship meeting. In that case, I will become the wife of such a man. It is better for suitors to listen to my advice, and if they do not understand the meaning of my message, even if they are from the nobility, they will fall into disgrace." Then she ordered that this message be installed in a prominent place in the city so that the nobles of the government, court, and army commanders could see the message, and if they desired to marry the princess, they either had to conquer that fortress or sacrifice their lives in that way. So when the news of the condition of marrying the princess reached the princes and rulers, each one decided to test their fate. But they were all unsuccessful, and as they passed by the stone guards, they lost their heads, and a tower of suitors' heads had been erected on top of the wall. Finally one day, a prince from a noble family, a young man who was handsome, intelligent, strong, and brave, went from the city to the hunting ground to hunt lions and wild wolves. On the way, he saw a proclamation about a princess, and he saw the beautiful face and figure of the princess in that proclamation. Although the enchanting face of the princess was beautiful and captivating, behind that face lay hundreds of thousands of deadly poison arrows. The prince could not bear to see that beautiful face and figure like a pearl, and praised the princess for showing such skill in drawing that portrait. The prince said to himself, "If this jewel is also in the mouth of a whale, I must obtain it. How can I distance myself from this love that has no escape route? I may be able to ignore this letter tainted with desire, but I will lose patience and be broken from within. I may lose my head over this love, but this love never leaves my head. It seems I have been infected with this love. But it seems that the way to reach such a beloved is enchanted and cannot be achieved without the power of magic. I should not step into this path without a plan, but I should use my intellect to prevent great harm. Then he said to himself, my heart is filled with sorrow from your love, how can I be happy? Then he sighed and looked back at the princess's face, tears forming in his eyes. But he did not speak to anyone about the thought of love with the princess. Every morning passed by that announcement, and he looked at that silver mountain-like figure, and that beautiful sun-like face. So the prince set out in search of a magician to break the spell that prevented him from reaching the fortress. Eventually, he found a wise and knowledgeable man, who was well versed in many sciences, and had connections with demons and fairies. He went to the wise man and confided in him, telling him about all the suitors who had lost their heads. The wise philosopher revealed the solution to the riddle and spell to him. The prince thanked him, returned to the city, pondered for a few days, prepared for the journey to the fortress, and found answers for each spell. Finally, he put on a red garment, symbolizing that he was not only going to conquer the fortress for himself, but also seeking revenge for all the lost heads. Therefore, all the people of that land sympathized with him. He went to the fortress and, following the instructions of the wise philosopher, nullified each spell so that he could reach the fortress unharmed. When he put the key in the castle door to enter, Princess shouted, "It seems you are lucky and destiny has guided you to this victory. Now that you have opened the treasury door, be patient for 2 days and go to the city to see my father, so that I can also come there and ask you 4 riddles. If you can solve those 4 riddles, then I will be your only friend and I will become your wife without any conditions." The prince, who saw that he had succeeded in this stage, gathered all the severed heads of the previous suitors and set off towards the city, burying the heads. All the people of the city were happy to see him return safe and sound, and a celebration was held at the prince's house. Everyone praised him and said, "If the princess breaks her promise and does not marry you, we will revolt and overthrow the king, and you will be placed on the throne." On the other hand, the beautiful princess was happy to see that the prince had successfully passed the difficult stage of courtship, and she came to the palace that night. Her father was delighted to see his daughter. The daughter told her father about her well-being and the story of all the suitors who sacrificed themselves for her in marriage, and finally said to her father, "The prince in red succeeded with persistence and great determination, unlocked all the spells, conquered the barrier, and fulfilled 2 out of 3 conditions. Now we have to see how he can fulfill the 3rd condition." Father said, "What is the 3rd condition?" "Good girls take the conditions easily, not make the conditions of marriage more." The girl said, "I will ask him 4 difficult riddles. If he can solve all of them, indeed he will be my husband and heir to the throne, but if he cannot, he will be a wanderer in the mountains and deserts. It is better that the king sits on the throne tomorrow, and invites the young man to a feast, and I sit behind the curtain, and ask him questions, so he can answer those riddles." The king said, "Your decision is acceptable to us. Whatever you want will be done," and said nothing else, and they went to the bedroom to sleep. In the morning, when the lapis sky blew ruby dust on the ground, the king organized a magnificent assembly. He invited all the elders and nobles to the party. The princess sat behind the curtain to test the prince with her riddles. They brought lunch and entertained the guests. After the meal, the king ordered, "Place my throne in a location where I can witness the prince's trial by the princess. I want to see if the young man will emerge from this test with pride." The assembly was like a gold standard set by a jeweler. For the first riddle, the charming girl took out 2 pearls from her ear and handed them to one of the servants of the palace, saying, "Hurry and give these 2 pearls to the prince and bring me his answer." The messenger quickly went to the guest and gave him the 2 pearls. The man looked at the pearls, evaluated them, and added 3 more pearls identical to those pearls, giving 5 pearls to the messenger to return to the princess. When the princess saw the 5 pearls, she crushed them with a stone, mixed them with sugar, and gave them to the messenger to take back to the princess. Then the bowl of sugar mixed with crushed pearls was sent to the prince. The guest understood the point and asked the servant to bring a cup of milk, and when the milk was ready, he added sugar and crushed pearls to it and said, "Take the cup back to the lady." The lady drank the cup of milk. The sugar dissolved in the milk, and the princess drank the syrup, leaving only the crushed pearls at the bottom of the container. The lady weighed the pieces of pearls, and they were exactly the same weight as the pearls before they were crushed. She then took a ring from her hand and handed it to the messenger to deliver to the prince. The wise prince took the ring from the maid and put it on his finger, liking it very much. The prince had a precious pearl in his pocket that shone like a bright light in the darkness at night. He gave it to the maid to deliver to the princess. The lady took the pearl in her hand, broke her necklace, and found a pearl identical to the prince's pearl. She tied them both together with a thread and gave them to the maid to return to the prince, like giving Pleiades to the sun. The prince looked at the 2 pearls. They were identical and looked the same, so he couldn't recognize his own pearl. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find a 3rd pearl similar to the other 2. He asked his servants to prepare a yellow jewel, and placed it among the 2 pearls on a thread and gave it to the messenger to return to the lady. When the princess saw the yellow jewel with the 2 pearls, she said nothing. Instead, she smiled pleasantly, put the yellow jewel on her finger, hung the 2 pearls on her ear, and said to her father, "Rise, for fortune has favored me. I have found a husband who has no equal in the world. We are wise and lovers of knowledge, but know that our knowledge and information are insignificant compared to the awareness of this man." The king said to his fair-faced daughter, "Now we have witnessed this scene of the puzzle from you and its solution by that young prince, but all these ceremonies were veiled and mysterious. I ask you to enlighten me about the truth of these puzzles." The princess revealed the secret of the riddles and said, "When I first brought out 2 pearls from my ear, I meant that life is actually just 2 days. The day you are born and the day you die. So, one must appreciate its value." The young man added 3 more pearls to it, signifying that even if these 2 days of life become 5 days and their count is added, it is still transient and passes quickly. Then I broke the pearl and mixed it with sugar. My intention was that if the pearls represent life, sugar represents desire. In the sense that this life is tainted with transient desires and lust. I asked him to separate the sugar and pearls from each other with this magic, just as separating desire, greed, and temptation from life is difficult. But the prince added the milk, a symbol of knowledge and wisdom, to the sugar and the crushed pearls, so that the pearls remain at the bottom of the container and the sugar is separated. Just as life is purified from destruction and temptations with wisdom. When I ate the milk and sugar from his cup, I was like a breastfeeding baby who feeds on milk from the mother's breast until she grows up. Then I sent a ring as a sign of consent to marry him. He also sent me a rare gem, meaning that just as this gem is rare in the world, you will not find someone like me in the world, and I sent a gem identical to it for him, meaning that I am also his match. So he compared the 2 gems, and could not find a 3rd gem similar to those 2. So he sent me a yellow ring to protect me from the evil eye. So I agreed to be his beloved. The king saw that their love was inseparable. He provided the necessities for the marriage of the princess and the prince. So he arranged a celebration like the parties in heaven, where the air was perfumed with incense and musk. He married them, and it was as if a cedar in a flower garden raised its head to the sky. The man saw his ring in the lady's hands and remembered his red dress on the day of crossing the fence. The blood is red because it covers the soul. The rose was never the best flower in the garden if the red color was not visible in it. After hearing that wonderful story, Bahram got excited, blushed, kissed the beautiful princess, and fell asleep next to her.